Hi everyone. So my name is Sjoerd De Jong, and I work for Epic Games as evangelist. So I basically travel, in particular, Northern Europe, and I go to conferences like these, I go to universities and so forth, and I basically talk to everyone about Unreal, right? I started, and I'll show you in the meantime my name, because my name is so weird, most people don't get it. So that's my name. I started in 1999 already with Unreal, so I've been doing this for 16 years of Unreal, just adding up. And I went through all versions of the engine. And what I'm going to do today is build a simple 2D game. It's going to be very simple. You know, by the time you did anything worthwhile, it's going to be 40 minutes in or so. But still, you're going to see the whole from start to there. I'm going to do live. I have a few small things prepared just to make sure it goes a little bit faster, but it's going to be from scratch. I'm going to do it fairly fast. It's not really meant as a tutorial. It's more meant to give you an overview of, like, look, if you use Unreal, this is kind of how you work, and this is kind of how fast you can do things and how you approach things. Okay, so that's just the idea. So I'm going to do it fairly fast, but I'm still trying to explain what I do. And then once I'm done with that, I'm going to bring up some general Unreal Engine 4 points, just some general stuff, you know, a bit of a sales talk. And also, I have my own personal project with me, so if there is time left, I will open up my own project, which is really large, actually, and you will see an entirely different aspect of the engine. So first we have this simple 2D game, and then I might, if I have some time left, you see the really big game as well, okay? Before I start, how many of you have tried Unreal Engine 4? Okay, say 30%, 40, good, cool. Good, okay, so what I have here is a level prepared. And it's just a simple level. It's basically just this. It's using our 2D tools. You're going to see more of those later on. But basically, I just have this. I can't play it, though, because there is no game mode set up. I have the level prepared. I can see this thing is where the player would start. This is the default start location. But there's nothing else. So the first thing I'm going to have to do is make my own player. And in fact, before I can make my own player, I'm going to have to make a new game mode. So first I need a game mode that tells the game this is the player to use. Okay, so let's do that. I'm going to create a new blueprint class based on game mode. Blueprint is our visual scripting system. You'll see later on when I'm actually using it. So right now I'm just going to move forward. But it's what we use for a lot of the logic. So my game mode, my typing is usually terrible, so I'm going to make nice typing mistakes. So I opened that one up, and I'm immediately going to make a second one. So we'll do this again. New blueprint. This time, however, based on stick base character. So I have a base class prepared here. And I'll explain later why. And this is my player. Okay, so I have the game mode and I have the player. In the game mode, it says here default pawn class, so default player. I'm going to say that should be you. Cool. Okay. And then just preparing here, I'm going to tell the level. So this is the level. Please use this game mode. Okay. So all I did is just prepare it. I just made sure that the level uses my player. That's basically it. Okay. So I can play. Let's play the game. Probably doesn't really work. Okay. But at least it started. That's something. So what doesn't work here is that the camera, there is no camera specified. So if there is no camera specified, because I didn't do anything, it just takes the default X forward, and X forward happens to be in the direction of the whole thing there with the level, right? So what I'm going to do is I'm going to start editing my player now. It's okay, player. I'll close the other one. So this is the player, and here you can see you have the component view. So you can add all kinds of things to the blueprint scripts. They're basically scripts, but you can add anything to it. You can add particles to it, sounds, 2D elements, anything you want can be added. In this case, I have 3 things already inherited, actually 4 if you want. So this is inherited from the parent. Remember when I made a stick base character. I had a parent class that had it prepared. And again, I'll explain later why. But the thing is, that sprite, it has a sprite here that is empty, there's nothing here. So I'm simply going to assign, let's do that or so. I'm going to assign an animation to it, to the animation. This thing, by the way, the 2D animation, we basically import textures like these, right? Just flipbooks, basically. And then we have 2D tools built in. So I would be able to do this, sprite action, extract sprites. And this will automatically find the empty space between each frame and divide that up into different sprite assets. So now I have a lot of sprite assets like this. This is our sprite editor tool, where you can define the collision and such, etc. So In that case, once I have those sprites, I could select all of them, and I could right-click and do create flipbook. And that would automatically create a 2D animation based from that. Okay, so that's all been prepared, but this is how you would do it if you were to go from scratch. So this is one of those existing animations that's assigned, cool. But it doesn't fix the camera problem, because the camera was facing forward, as mentioned. So I'm going to do that at the same time. I'm going to add a component, because there is no camera specified, so I'm going to add a camera. I'm going to add, while I'm at it, also a spring arm, because I want to offset the camera. So, I mean, a camera obviously shouldn't be in the character's head. It's not very good. So I'm going to use a spring arm to offset it. I'm going to make the camera a child of the spring arm by dragging it onto the spring arm. And then I basically need to position it correctly. So it's minus 90, I believe, here. So it looks at the player. And this is the offset distance. So now it's over here. And then just turning off some options. I don't need anything to it. I mean, it does collision tests and such. If you do like a third-person game, it would automatically know if it hits the wall or not, you know, the camera that follows it. So I just turned everything off. It's a simple 2D game. And let's try this again. So that's a lot better already. So now we have the correct view. And he gets the thing on his head. But we have the correct view, right? The thing is, I can't move. If I press anything here, it doesn't do anything. We haven't done the input. So we're moving forward. Next step, I'm going to make him move. And to do that, I'm basically going to start doing the visual scripting. So there's some tabs here. If I switch to the event graph, I get the visual scripting bit. Okay, so Blueprint is a visual scripting thing. We've had visual scripting since 2006 about with Kismet. And what we noticed with Unreal Engine 3 is that people started using the visual scripting to do really weird stuff. They use basically a level scripting tool to make entire games. So we said, hey, people seem to want that. Seems to be working really well, actually. So let's take that idea and let's turn it into an entirely build-out tool. So now we have Blueprint, which is really deeply integrated in every part of the engine. Okay, and Blueprint can do anything. It's not just a level scripting tool anymore. It's basically doing absolutely anything you want. You can make an entire game in just Blueprint, provided it's somewhat simple, but you can go really far. Good. So I'm using this, and I need two events first. I need something that starts it, right? So I need an event. So I'm going to do move right, and I'm going to do jump. These things that I'm adding here, I can't manage to type jump. These things that I'm adding are input actions, which have already, I prepared this, but has already been defined in the project settings here in input. You can see here it says jump, see, and here you can say jump, action jump is assigned to W and up, spacebar, and so forth. So that's where the connection happens between the key and the action, and then the action goes on in Blueprint. Okay, so back here. Jump is the easiest, so I'm doing that first. Jump simply calls function jump, and that automatically makes him jump. There is a C++ parent class above all of this, which handles some of this. It's standard in the engine. So all of that functionality is standardly included. You can automatically make a player jump if you simply call on that. So that's covered. Moving is slightly more work. So move left or right. I'm going to add movement input. Okay, this connects there. And I'm using the axis value to scale it, and direction is 1. Basically what happens here is that if axis value is 1, you're moving right. If axis value is -1, you're moving left, and 0 is standing still. So that's how it knows which side to go. Okay? Yeah, so now I can do this, which is maybe still slightly weird, but at least we can move, and we can jump. Okay? But it's still a little bit weird, because the animation doesn't seem to be updating. I mean, it's just playing the same animation over and over again, okay? So next step is I'm going to fix the animation there. I'm going to make sure that you actually have a walk and a run and a jump animation, etc. Good, so going back here. What I have here on the left, and what I did in the beginning, is I took sprites and I defined sprites to be a certain something, right? A certain animation. So what I want to do is I want to set that sprite thing while the game is running. So I'm going to drag it in. I dragged it in from there to there, so this now represents the sprite component. And the very important thing with Blueprint is that it's context sensitive. If I right-click here, I get a different menu than if I drag and let go. This is a different menu. It only shows the options in the menu that are applicable to the current situation. It's kind of context sensitive. So it kind of helps you get into it, right? It makes it easy to find what you need instead of going through a huge list of possible functions and things you can do. Okay, so I drag from here, set flipbook. And I do set flipbook because I want to change the flipbook assigned. Now I could do this, it's not going to help me, but I could do that. Because I have to be able to pick which animation, which animation asset to set it to. Okay, now this is the thing I prepared, because it's a lot of logic, but I made an animation state. I made this thing. I'll show you in a second what it is. I'm going to add that in between the two. And this outputs a flipbook. This says output flipbook, so I'll assign that to a new flipbook. Basically, this figures out which animation to pick and then sets it to the other one. What this one is, if I double-click this, I will actually get this, okay? So you can actually make these blocks yourself as well. And I'm going to get back to that point several times during the presentation. Blueprint goes really, really far. It's not just a fancy little tool like to make something, to make a simple little game or so. It actually, this has to work for a AAA studio with 150 people working on it. This has to work. So we need a lot of advanced functionality in there. So what we did here, and this is the real reason why I made a parent class. Remember in the beginning, I made stick base character, right? That was my parent class. That's a blueprint in itself. And in that blueprint, I already made a function. There's a function defined here called animation state. And within that function, I made all of this. And this basically checks, are you jumping, are you falling, are you firing, whatever you're doing. It figures out what you're doing. And then based on that information, it eventually outputs a different 2D animation, a flipbook. But that's in the parent. And because I made a child of that, I can also call on the function in that parent blueprint, and that's what I just did. Okay, so good. This is going to set it, so we're just going to try. See, I'm standing up, I walk, and I get this. Okay, so everything seems good. The only thing is if you go left, you like do Michael Jackson moonwalking or whatever. I mean, it's not really working going left, but everything else is fine. Good. So next thing is make sure I can actually go left. Good. I'm going to do this in a very simple way. I'm going to look at the axis value, because if axis is -1, it means I go left. So I just figure out, am I -1 or not? Okay, so I simply do compare float. Okay, compare float. I'll just continue here at the end. Compare float to 0. If it's above 0, it means you're going right. And then I need to do this, get controller. And then set the control rotation. So if above 0, hold on, then we set the rotation of the character to 0, but if you go left, so if -1, if lower than 0, then we set rotation to 180. So we just turn the player around. It's a very simple trick. Either way, that will work. Yeah, so now I have this, okay. I can full screen it, but basically I have that. Good, then the next step would be is I want the character to be able to fire. So I'm going to make the player being able to shoot. So I'll continue here. And again, I need something to start it, so I have a fire event. This has been tied to certain keys on the keyboard, etc. So fire, and then I would be able to do spawn actor from class. So I'm going to spawn something else. On press, spawn that. And I need to know where to spawn it. So it needs to spawn transform. So what I'm going to do is get actor transform and connect that. So basically what I do is I simply ask, get the location and the rotation of the player, and then spawn the actor wherever the player is. Very simple. But next big problem is we don't have anything to spawn. I don't have a projectile. I haven't made that. So I'm going to leave this be for a second. I'm going to go back to where I was working, and I'm going to make yet another blueprint. This one is going to be based on nothing. So I pick actor as a parent. Actor is very neutral. It doesn't really mean anything. I mean, it has certain functionality, but it's very limited. So I take actor, call it a name it something, open it up, and I get this. It's completely empty. The white sphere here is just placeholder to make sure it's not, you actually see something, but it's completely empty script. There's no functionality at all. So I'm going to add things to it. I'm going to add a sphere collision to it. That's the actual collision of the projectile. You can see that automatically replaced the white ball as well, because the ball was just placeholder. And let me just make it slightly smaller here, 16. And I add a flipbook to it. And we set that thing there. So we have basically a 2D projectile thing. And I'm going to add a particle to it as well. In this case, it's a 3D particle, but it's going to look better. Okay, so I have this. This looks better in game when it's moving. It's going to be a trail of dots that it leaves behind. Right now it looks a little bit weird. Good, but now I have this. Let's just fire that. Let's see what happens. So it's let me type this here. Good. Yeah, so I can see I can spawn it, but it perhaps doesn't really behave like a projectile, but at least it spawns, so at least I can do this now. But yeah, that doesn't really help, I guess. Okay, so what I didn't do is I didn't actually make it move. So next step. We have a very simple way of doing that. I simply can add something called a projectile movement, and all that really does is it simply gives a continuous momentum to it, so it just moves, basically. You know, so we prepared that in a component, and that component has a speed, so I'm going to say your speed is 1,500, your gravity is 0, so it just goes in a straight line, and let's try this again. So caching, now we have this. But yeah, perhaps it's now moving, but it doesn't hit the walls, so still not quite there, but at least we can do this. It doesn't hit anything. It doesn't hit anything because I never configured that sphere thing I added. So I'm going to go back to the sphere that I made in the beginning, that thing, and I'm going to say that that thing should be, it's overlapping everything, it's not blocking. So I'm saying please change the collision settings here. Let's do ignore only the player, because I don't want it to hit the player. Let's try this again. Ah, good, now I have this. Still, it is rather weird. Okay, it's just sticking to everything. But at least it stops. Good. So, still not there. If I would give this collision for the player, by the way, I would be able to stand on it, so I could actually build bridges if I would really want to. But yeah, not quite there. So, again, we're going back here. And then I'm going to script it. So I'm going to go to the event graph of this blueprint as well, and I'm going to do on event hit. Let's start very simple. Simply destroy the thing. On event hit, destroy actor. Do this again. So now I have, so every time it has to cache it, but now I have this. Okay, still not very interesting, but hey, at least it is. It's slightly more correct. So to make it more fancy, what I'm going to do is, I'm going to do, before you destroy it, first spawn an emitter at location. So spawn a particle. And location is where you hit, so hit location is where you spawn it. And what you spawn is it's a predefined particle. I can show you the particles, by the way, while we're at it. So we have a whole particle editor built in. We have that thing built in, so that's where we designed all of that. Particles are pre-made, just to speed it up a bit. Okay, so now it first spawns the particle, and then it still destroys itself. But at least, now I have this. Okay, so it's starting to look slightly better. Still, not quite there, because these blue blocks over here, they're supposed to be destroyable. I'm supposed to be able to shoot them, and they should break apart. And they're not doing that right now. So I'm going to work on that. These blue blocks, by the way, they're blueprints in themselves as well. If I were to right-click them and do edit breakable brick, you can see it sets the color, and it has some logic in there. And in that logic, it has a function or an event, nearly the same thing, called destroy this brick. If this were to be called, it would remove the brick and spawn all kinds of debris falling down. Basically, I want to figure out if I hit that with my projectile, I should be able to call on the function in this other blueprint. So I'm going to communicate from the projectile blueprint to whatever else I'm hitting. I want to call on this, okay? So I'm going to go to my projectile, and I'm going to ask other here, this is what I hit. So I'm going to ask, is what I hit, in this case I'm going to use cost to breakable brick, is what I hit castable to a breakable brick? Let's do that after the particle. And if it is, the first one here is on success. If it can be read as a breakable brick, then I'm going to call on destroy this brick. I'm going to call on that function. And then I'm still going to destroy my own particle as well anyway. If it failed, it means it's not a breakable brick, then simply destroy yourself as you used to do. Okay, good. Okay, so now what I have is this. And we have cats. But it works, so it understood that, and it triggered the function in the other blueprint from my projectile blueprint. But the whole thing works, right? Okay, nice. Still, it's not good enough because I think no game is complete without UFOs, so I'm going to add a UFO dropping bombs. So I'm going to add a very basic enemy. I'm not going to be able to kill the player, I don't have time for that, but at least I have the enemy flying around. So we're continuing, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to add a new blueprint again. So I'm going to build a UFO. Again, it's based on nothing in this case. I'm going to keep it very simple. Just call it something. Let's open it up. I'm going to add a scene node at the top. The scene node doesn't do anything. It's just it's just something to place something in. You know, it's just like a category. Just to have that there. And then I'm going to add a static mesh. So I'm moving away from 2D slightly. I'm going to actually mix 3D with 2D. Static mesh is a model. And I basically simply assign my UFO. I have this thing. Okay. So I assigned a 3D model to a blueprint. That's it. I'm going to leave blueprint behind just for a moment, because the problem here is that this has two materials. You can see it doesn't have any materials. This is the Unreal placeholder material. It doesn't actually, you know, it's missing the materials, right? So I'm going to first create these two over there myself. So I'm going to leave this be for a moment, go here, and create a new material. Open it up, and you can see it's the same kind of interface. That goes for all of our tools. We build all of our tools ourselves. The editor has all of those tools automatically included. I mean, they work on every platform, in every version, etc. They all look the same. They're all done by the same people. So if you know one of them, it's quite easy to learn the other ones as well. It's the same logic. It's the same way of thinking. Good. So I have this empty material here. Let me just get one of the textures here. Folder. I have this. Okay, so I just brought the texture in. I can show you. This is the texture we're using. It's a very simple texture, just a demonstration. We have that in. I could drag that to base color and it would do something there. I'm going to do it slightly more fancy, I guess, and we'll make it next gen with furnell. So I'll add furnell to it. Just do this instead. Then we'll make it totally next gen and PBR by doing roughness 0, so it gets reflective, so it will actually reflect our beautiful 2D environment, which is not going to work in 2D, but just for the sake of showing that. So by simply hooking in 0 into roughness, it actually gets reflective. Might be hard to see, but it is. So I just covered that, just doing some random stuff. But then there's one particular thing that I need. At the bottom of the UFO, might be hard to see here, but at the bottom of the UFO there's basically a space underneath, and that's like a blue light. I want this glowing blue light there. And what I did earlier in the mesh already is I painted black vertex color in it. In fact, I can show you probably here. I can vertex color. See, what I did is this. I painted black vertex color there. So what I want to do is I want to say if where the vertex color is black, I want blue emissive glow. I'm using that as a mask. Now I could do that whole thing in the material editor. I could just start building this, but I don't want to do that. Let's say this is something you want to reuse. Let's say you have 100 different UFOs and they all use the same kind of glow system, right? You don't want to place those nodes over and over again. So what I did is I prepared this one. I made this thing, and this thing I just found in the content browser. This is something I prepared. This is a material function. If I double click it, I get more nodes, but basically I make a collection of nodes elsewhere. I save that in a function, and then I can call on that function in any other material that I ever built. So if ever I need to change this, if ever it turns out that this is the wrong color, for example, I would only change it here and everything else would update. Okay, so we have this one here. You can see it just takes the color and it makes it like go up and down a bit, you know, the brightness changes a bit, whatever, and it looks at the vertex color and it alerts by that, whatever. It does what I just said. I have this thing and I simply connect it to emissive. Okay, you're not going to see it here, I guess, or maybe slightly, but that's about it. Okay, so this seems to work. Let's just save that and assign it, see how that goes. Let's see, where was it? It was that one. Oops, I didn't select it. Oops. Okay, so I have it there. Still, we're not quite there, because the bottom is a different material, right? It's the second material. And here's another advanced feature of Unreal. We've had this for a long time, actually. So, I mean, yeah, we have an entirely built-out material editor here with nodes, etc. But again, if you work on bigger games and even on simpler games, this is not good enough. You need a lot of those deeper functions in there and functionality. So what we did is, here we have a material that's basically the same as the material on the top. It simply uses a different texture, but it's the same look and feel. Yeah. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take the parent one and I'm going to create a material instance from that. So I simply right-click, create material instance. I open that up and I get this. You can see this is a simplified interface. It doesn't really have anything here. This is actually not that important. There's nothing here. But the material instance is like, you know, it's like a child of the other material. And you can go really deep with that. You can make an instance of an instance of an instance of an instance. It basically reads the parent's functionality and then presents it in a simpler way, but it inherits everything from the parent. So what I want to do is I want to have this child that inherits everything except the texture. I want to have the same thing, but a different texture. And to do so, I'm going to right-click the texture here in the parent material, and I'm going to convert it to a parameter instead. Only parameters are exposed. Call it texture or whatever. Let's just save that again. And then in our instance, I can now see texture here. It showed up over there. So then I'm going to reassign a different texture to it. There we go. So you have the same look and feel, the same kind of shader basically, with different texture assigned. And you can keep on going like this for a long time. You can do this with numbers, with anything you want, floats, etc. Okay, so let's assign it to the UFO. Okay, now we have this, and you also get the glow at the bottom. See, that's it. So the whole thing is there now. That's nice. Then still, I want to go further. For some reason, this UFO happens to have like blades at the top like a helicopter. I don't know why. They're advanced aliens. But we want to have those blades at the top. I could, again, do this all the way here manually, just add those meshes, then make them rotate, like animate them in here, etc. But there would be a much faster way would be the following. I can add a child actor. And some of these things here are a little bit complex. I mean, they're not the type of things you would do when you learn the engine, but for the people in the room who have been using Unreal before, this is the kind of stuff that's quite nice to know. So I've added a child actor to the blueprint, to this one, but it's empty. I haven't set it to anything yet. I just simply added it. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to look for the thing I actually want to assign to it, and that's this one. So what I have done in the past is I prepared another blueprint with nothing more in it than the two helicopter blade things, and I put a rotating movement on that, so it simply rotates all the time. I simply made another blueprint, and I'm going to merge that blueprint with the first one. So I've got this one going. I'm going back to the actual UFO. Child actor here. Okay, child actor is you. So you can see now it shows up, and it also executes all of the functionality in it. In this case, it's set to rotate, so the blades are going to be rotating on their own on top of the UFO. I'm also going to make it the child of the mesh, so when I move the UFO mesh itself, this one will follow. Anyway, so I've got this. Let's just see if it works in game. Let's move it back on Y. Okay. Yeah, so that seems to work, see? It's rotating, and there's a light underneath. Okay, so that's covered. Next problem, so it should be dropping cats. It's gonna drop cats. Okay, so it should drop bombs, basically. I want the thing to drop bombs, and then eventually I want it to go back and forth, so just, you know, patrol between two pods and drop bombs. So, I'm gonna set that one up. Let's close some things first. Let me just close some stuff. Okay, here's a UFO. I'm going to do this slightly dirty, but it's fast. So I'm going to take event tick. Event tick is basically per frame updating. I'll add a delay behind it, and I'll set the delay to 1 second. In other words, I made a very simple loop. Every 1 second, do this. It's a little bit dirty. You should do loops in a better way than this, but for the sake of speeding it up. Okay, then spawn actor from class, etc. Now, I've done this before, right? I've done this when I did my own projectile. I don't want to go there again. In fact, this one is more complicated than the first one, because this one has to figure out where the bottom of the UFO is, not just the middle of the UFO or whatever. I don't want to go there. So what I can do instead, and here's another more advanced feature, is I can go back here, and I can add a component called an attack component. I'll show you in a second what it is, but that attack component I can drag in here, and then in that attack component I do attack function, and I call on that. So what just happened is that this attack component, again, it's a more advanced feature, but it's an existing blueprint that I made. It's in fact this one. This is a component blueprint. It doesn't have a 3D, there is nothing to a 3D to it. It's purely the logic, there's nothing else in it. I seem to have done that. There's nothing else in it. But in it I made a function, and that function is called attack function, and that function in turn handles everything that I used to do. See, here it says spawn actor, UFO projectile, play a sound, and spawn a particle at the location where you spawn. So this does all kinds of logic, and I'm simply calling on the function within the component. So I did that here. I take component and I call on that function. So that's all the logic I needed. I just prepared it, basically. Again, if you have a game with 100 UFOs, you all call on the same attack component. It speeds it up. So yeah, now it does that. I don't know why, but it's dropping cats and they explode. I like cats. I'm just trying to explode them. Okay. So yeah, we basically got that. They're not damaging me. I'm not going to have time for that, but this seems to work. The last thing I want to do with the UFO is simply make it go left and right. You know, just patrol between 2 points. So I'm going to move it up a bit, say, and go back to the UFO, and I'm going to add a timeline. You can do this multiple different ways, really, but let's say we take the event here. There's a pre-made event called begin play. On begin play, play the timeline. So when the UFO starts, when the game starts patrolling, basically. I'm not using AI for this, by the way. I'm simply hard-coding the animation between 2 points. I could do this in a million more complicated ways with actual AI and have it actually avoid obstacles and all that, but I'm keeping it very simple. I have a timeline. And I have a static mesh. The static mesh is the UFO. So I'm dragging basically the UFO in here. And on the UFO, I want to do set relative location. I do this. And I do this. So basically, I'm going to set the location of the UFO between point A and point B. Point A is 0. It's where we are right now. Point B is, let's say, 600 units to the right. And then I need to animate it. The alpha is going to control how far it goes between the 2 points. So if I double-click timeline, I get this, and I can add a float track to it. So it's like a curve editor. It basically animates the values. So I have 1 point, I have to set those points here, but I have 1 point at 0 in the beginning. The last point is at 0 as well, but at 5 seconds. This is the length of the animation, by the way. Here it says 5. And the middle point is at, say, 2.5, so halfway in, and value 1. Basically it does this, 0, 1, 0, okay? So point A, point B, point A, and loop around. So we just go back and forth. I enable loop here, so it keeps on going. By having made that track, I got this new thing over here. I got a new output, and I connect that to alpha. That's it. Yeah, so now it does that. Again, it's not super polished or whatever, but we have a simple patrolling UFO, and it keeps dropping cats, and the cats explode. And I can get more cats. Okay. Yeah, so I hope that gave you a little bit of an idea of how setting all of this stuff up works. Give a bit of an overview of how it is to work with Unreal. Even doing very simple games, 2D games, very simple stuff, you can get somewhere quite fast. So what I'm going to do next, and let me boot up something while I talk. What I'm going to do next is a couple of slides, basically. And while I'm doing the slides, the next thing will load, and we'll transition into that. Let me just make sure I can get there. So that's good. Hold on, I need to get over the wall. Good, and then should get a lot of cats. It's my email, by the way. I'll show it again later. To get to the other side, and I have a couple of Mario-style slides here. Good. So the thing for me with Unreal is it's mostly all the material, all the editors built in. That's the big thing for me. What I'm actually, the way I started is as level designer, and I do tech art, and I do basically everything except programming. Okay, I really can't program. So for me as an artist, this really empowers me. I can basically do whatever I want, in a way. There are some limits, obviously, with Blueprints, with some of the other editors as well, but I can go really, really far. And that's really attractive for me. It really empowers me. You know, like the stuff like Blueprint, it's not meant to replace programmers, by the way, but it's meant to empower the rest of your team so the programmers can spend their time on more serious stuff than, hey, dude, can you replace this particle for me on the gun? You know, and that's what we're aiming for. And also, again, they work on every platform. They work on every, you know, on every version. If anyone joins your company or you go work for a company, they use the exact same tools. So everyone has the exact same stuff. What we're giving away here in the standard version is also exactly the same as big companies has. So a very big company with 400 people or whatever using Unreal will have the exact same tools. Everyone has exactly the same and it works everywhere. And that's a big thing for us. It's documented, it's bug-free. Obviously something could be wrong, but we're maintaining it ourselves. So it's working well. So that's a big thing. Also, we've got templates built in. You're not going to use this for a serious game, but it's very good for learning. So you can actually pick our templates. It's like a one button create game thing. Okay, so you just create games. But it's very good for learning because you can just generate it and then look at how it was made to learn how we did it in either C++ or in Blueprint. And it's also very good for prototyping. You have an idea, just run the template so you don't have to deal with all the start stuff and try your actual idea. So we got that, that's a nice thing. Something else we have are all of our content stuff. So we have about 20 content examples that we made ourselves. Some of it is very, very simple, like we have this Flappy Bird thing, clone. I mean, it's very, very simple. But we also have a lot of very high-end content, like AAA quality content. You can download all of it, you can look at all of it, and you can use all of it. You make a commercial game and you want to use our characters, you use our characters. You use whatever the hell you want in what you're building, commercial or not. Okay, so we have that. Cats. Then we've got a marketplace that we're working on. So yeah, basically it's you can buy assets and scripts and all that kind of stuff. We're still working on that. We're still extending it, but we're extending it fast. So we have that covered. It does plugins as well since about 2 or 3 months ago. All the source code is released, all of it. So you can do whatever you want with the source code. Okay. If you want to make the editor purple, you can make the editor purple, and we're fine with it. In fact, you can then send the changes you did back to us and ask us to integrate them standard. And we're probably not going to do that if you made the editor purple, but you could. Okay? So on a more serious note, if you find an issue in the engine, you can fix it and then send it back to us or share it with the rest of the community. You can do whatever you want. And also you don't get stuck because you have all of the code, you have got everything. You can either learn from how we did it or you can change anything you want. So you get stuck on a bug, you don't have to wait for us to fix it. If you know how to fix it, you can fix it. It's not going to block your production. You got all of the source code. This one is fun. I'll tap out of here. Yeah, so all the stuff we have. We have website, obviously, you know. And this is the official documentation. So most things are well documented, especially the stuff you need in the beginning when learning the engine is very thoroughly documented. Obviously forums, we have a community run wiki. We got our own answer hub where we reply on bugs and things like that. We got a massive Unreal Engine 4 playlist thing, 208 videos, you know, a lot of tutorials here from us. Every Thursday, this is tonight I guess, yeah, tonight at 8 o'clock. We have a live broadcast from the headquarters, so you can just chat with us live, and we will show you, this is what we are working on this week, this is how it's going. So we're doing that interaction there. We want to be very open with the community, basically. We got a roadmap since a long time ago already, so you can see what we're working on. We got that. But all of that aside, this is the most fun bit. We've got our releases, so I'm going to scroll through, and I'm probably not going to get to the end, but hey, I can scroll. And just scrolling through kind of tells the story and gets the point across. So this will take a long time. So I'll go on until I notice people are really bored. So soon we're past the pictures, get even more fun. Now we're past the pictures almost. So it's even more stuff coming by. Okay, I'm like, you can see the scroll bar on the far right, so I'm like 30% in, okay? And now there's no more pictures, so we have this. I'm not halfway yet. Okay, I can use page down and make it speed up a little bit more, but you're getting the point, right? That's one single one of our releases, And we're very, very thorough, so you can see exactly what we've fixed. It's very precise in what we're doing. We're very open with it. And just 2.5 months after we've done that one, again, I'll save you some time, but we do basically this, yeah? So every 2 to 3 months, we do those kind of releases continuously, and we've been doing that for a year and a half. So that's the speed at which we're moving forward. And some of it are really big changes and big upgrades. A lot of it are also clearly simple fixes or whatever, but we're fixing stuff at a very fast speed. And that's a big thing for us. Okay, so that's all of that. Cats. It runs on everything, basically, except Windows Phone, and it doesn't run on Nintendo. Everything else is covered. It runs on Android, it runs on iOS as well. The editor even runs on Mac and Linux. Not always superbly. I mean, we're primarily a Windows company, and Windows is probably still the more stable platform, but it runs on all of it. And if you want to develop for Xbox One, say, just to pick something here, you can get that license from us as well. You just have to email us. We can't give it out for free. I mean, put it online because of some, you have to be a registered console developer, etc. But just email us and we'll set you up. And you'll get all the source code for that as well. You get the whole thing is covered, no matter which platform you do. And also, we're just like giving money away. So we're giving like $5 million away. Obviously not to one person. It's divided, the maximum I believe was $50,000, but we're giving up to $50,000 away to teams all over the world for anyone doing something cool with Unreal. There are no strings attached. If the game is never released or whatever you're making, it's never done or never released, you don't pay back the money. If the game is released, you still don't pay back the money. You do whatever you want, okay? No strings attached. If you want to apply to that, there is a link on the website. Just send us an email and send in what you made. And if you like it, we'll give you money. That's it, okay? And then we have, this is fun. We've got this. So basically, it's free. There is a 5% royalty rate on it, and that's the only price. So the whole thing is free. You can get any of this right now. You can get a source code right now. If you want to develop for Xbox One, you can do that right now. Just email us. We'll set you up, and that's it. So all of that is covered. If you release a game with it, then it's 5% royalties on the income of that game. Okay? And we feel that's fair. If you can make your game 5% faster because of all of this, we feel it's fair. Also, we feel we have to be invested in your game. If we were to just sell you the engine, then we don't even have to care anymore whether or not it works. But we need to make sure it works. We need to make sure that you're successful in what you're doing, or we don't earn anything either. And that's important for us. Okay? So there's 5% royalty on it, and that's only on games. If you do something that's not games, it's free completely. If you do like an architectural visualization thing, it's 100% free. If you do a marketing game for a big company, it's 100% free. If BMW hires your company or something to do a small game and that gets released to the public, it's just a marketing tool or so, it's 100% free. All of that is free. Okay, so we're very, very flexible with it. Good. Now, I have 10 minutes left, so what I'm going to do with the last 10 minutes, let me just load, make sure I probably should have done this earlier, like actually click on this. But what I'm going to do with the last 10 minutes is cover some questions and look at my own big project just very briefly, so you get a bit of a bigger scale. So yeah, I forgot to press the load button on that, so that's still loading. So we can take questions first, maybe for about 5 minutes, and then step back on the other thing.
Hello. How does the workflow of Blueprint work with any kind of repository or something? Like, if you have like 10 people working on Blueprints, can it be merged? How does that work?
Yeah, so in general, let's go general first. We have a built-in source control thing here covering SVN, Perforce, and Git. All of the files, script or not, all of the files you see here at the bottom, and I can show you, are just files in Windows. So it's just one single file for that one single thing, right? Every asset is one single file. That one single file, by the way, contains a source texture as well, or the sound, or whatever it is. You can actually export the source TGA file out of it. So it's just one file covering all of it, including the references, including the metadata or anything, right? So when you work with source control, you simply make sure that you check out that file or you submit that file. That's it. You can't fail, you can't do anything else wrong. You can't like not submit the meta files or have something go wrong, you understand? So that covers a lot of that already. Now for scripts in particular, we have a script merge tool. So you can actually merge the blueprints if two people work on it at the same time. But I wouldn't advise using that all the time. I would advise you to find a better workflow, to find a workflow where you don't have to rely on merging it all the time, where you kind of avoid it, right? And we have a lot of tools built in for that because, like as mentioned, you can use these components, or you can use child actors, you can use blueprint libraries, a lot of things you can do to split up the script in multiple locations, and that's probably better. So, yes. Any other questions?
Hi. The 5% cut thing sounds pretty good, but if I make a mobile game, is this before or after the 30% Apple or Google?
Yes, it's before, so it's 7% in reality if you look at it that way.
Thanks.
By the way, if you're a bigger company or for whatever reason you can't live with the 5% or the 7%, you just talk to us. Like the 5% is just a standard deal we have for indies and all, just a general blanket solution. But obviously, if you work with bigger companies as well, they're not going to go with the same rules. So we do a lot of custom deals and custom, negotiations, and anything goes basically. Talk to us, and that's it. We'll figure out a way. So, still loading. Any other questions while we wait? No questions.
Are there any successful mobile games made with Unreal Engine?
We've been doing a big push for mobile lately. So actually the last release, 4.9 that we did now, had a lot of mobile features included. So we're still very much so working on that. We have several large mobile games in production I can't talk about. Either we or someone else, or someone is doing mobile games for sure. I've seen several, but they're not released yet. So we're definitely still ramping up there. Also with the technology, we're still working on it, and with games coming up. But it's definitely our ambition to do a lot with that.
Thanks. And another question, how flexible is Unreal with system requirements and stuff like that?
Well, let's just look at this. This thing is rather heavy here, if the light comes in. And this is a laptop, and this goes super fast already, so it actually runs quite well. The heaviest requirements are probably on the editor. The editor is rather heavy, but the game itself, once outside of the editor, runs surprisingly well on surprisingly low hardware, actually. So it is very flexible. We support 32-bit stuff, so you can compile for 32-bit computers. We support DirectX 9, so we have a lot of stuff built in there. So it is actually very flexible. It's just one thing is that the editor is somewhat heavy, so it might skew your perspective a bit when you run through the editor and then you feel, oh, this is a bit slow here and there, but it's just the editor. Once you compile it, it's very fast. Yeah.
Hey, thanks for the talk. Could you go into editor extensibility? What are my main tools? What are my main ways to extend the editor, except modifying the source code?
You want to make basically extra tools or something, I guess.
Yeah, like an editor window to iterate over all blueprints and
what we're working on, but it's not 100% done yet, is we're working on Blutilities, which is a blueprint for the editor. We have a Blutility shelf here, but it's not 100% done yet. So that's something for the future, extending that further. It somewhat works, that you can actually use Blueprint to make tools. That would be nice. But other than that, we have a plugin system behind the scenes as well. So you can make your own plugins, but that does, of course, require C++, but you can make plugins and take it from there.
And that also includes, I'm a Unity guy, but it also includes like a UI library, like create a button on one function and layout it and stuff like that.
Yeah, I don't see why not. But we have UI tools built in anyway. We have a UI editor, etc. But if you want to do your own solution or something, I don't see why you wouldn't be able to put that in some kind of plugin or some other easy to use solution you can use across multiple projects. No.
Okay, thanks.
Yeah. Good.
I have another mobile-related question, especially when this talks about creating 2D games.
Yeah.
The initial Hello World app size when creating a game with Unreal is, I think, still quite high. I haven't checked it recently, but are you working on bringing the app size that is required for just using Unreal Engine down in the future?
You mean the base cost for just using the engine, something like that? Yeah.
Exactly.
The lowest we got it to right now is, I think, 26 meg or 20-something meg. That's where we're at right now. The Flappy Tappy Chicken, Flappy Bird thing we made, that's 25, 26 meg on Android. So that's the cost, basically. And it would be nice to bring that down further. We will do that at some point, but that's the current cost. That's the bare minimum cost. So, yes. Any other questions? How many minutes do I have left? Do I have like 3 minutes? Or, yeah. Okay, I can show this for 3 minutes then. In any case, I'm around until tomorrow, 4 o'clock or so, so you want to see more, ask more, just ask me, I'm around. This is a very big game I'm doing on my own, so this is not epic, but this is just me. And then, of course, this is more the stuff Unreal works really well, but you know, like the big 3D worlds, etc. We have thousands and thousands of actors in here. In my big levels, I have up to 10,000 actors in a single level, so 10,000 meshes or so. The whole thing runs perfectly fine. You know, and everything in Unreal is built for this scale, basically, you know, built for big production. So it's a lot of different meshes. It's a lot of simple little tools built in. You know, even the landscape, it's divided in different sections. So you can just extend the landscape however long you want to work. I mean, however far you want to go. I can, for example, do this. You know, there's a lot of things built in. See, you just extend the landscape, build in sections, everything, lots. The whole thing just works. You can divide this into different levels as well, which is also the thing. So let's say you want to work on the same level with multiple people. And we do that here. We have a sound designer, and he should be able to work on the level while I'm working on the level. So all of the sound stuff is actually located in a different level. Here we have the level tab. See, this is the sound. If I hide the actual level, I only see the sound being left, and the other way around. That file is an actual different level. I don't think I can get to it from here, but it's a completely different level file and merges two different level files at the same time. And we have a lot of that kind of stuff built in. So one person could work on this, the other person could work on that. And again, that same idea goes through and through everywhere. And it's so easy. I mean, I have this whole game. I have day and night, I have temperature, I have wind, I have rising tides. The player can pick stuff up, you can craft stuff, you can do whatever you want. I haven't touched a line of code. Everything is done without. Okay, and I'm not a programmer. The best thing I ever did in programming was Python, and I made a calculator that could count to 4. Okay, and then I got stuck. I could have probably pulled off 5, 6 until 9 or so, but I mean, I'm absolutely terrible. But you give me this, and I can build something where you can basically do whatever you want. Like, look, if it gets night, you get ice forming on top of rocks, and there's so many small things you can do, and I have a million of these things built in. You can go so very far. And I mean, just looking at the blueprints, you know, this is, and I could have done some of this cleaner, and you might get a bit afraid by the spaghetti, but this is just the player itself. I have about 10 more scripts of that running in runtime at the same time, and the whole thing works. You can profile this. I can basically see exactly, you know, this function or this thing here takes 0.03 milliseconds per frame, so it's probably slow. So I should probably fix it. In fact, you can also make these in C++, however you want to do it. So here we had an inventory system first, done in Blueprint. That's where it gets less pleasant. And what I did is I asked my programmer, can you take my giant spaghetti in Blueprint and just make a single block of C++ out of that? He did that. So what we're doing now is we execute all kinds of logic, and then eventually it has to be added to the inventory array. Then we made this in C++, so this is run C++. It gets sent to C++, we do stuff there, that sends a signal back, which is this one, and then I continue my logic in Blueprint. You can do everything in C++, or you can do almost everything in Blueprint, or you can mix it up as however you want. This is our own C++, this is our own C++, this. See, we're extending it massively by just adding things from C++, this, and so forth. So you can really go any direction you want. And it holds up performance-wise. You can use this all over. It's not just a fancy tool. You can actually use this in full production for very big and complex things, which is very nice. Out of time? Yeah, I could, but there's a cutscene, so I have to very quickly disable the cutscene, otherwise you have to wait for the cutscene, etc. Wait 1 second. I have 1 minute? Cool. Although playing is hard to do in a single minute, I'm not going to be able to show that much, so I took off the bool here. This is the level blueprint, so also the level has blueprint for all the level logic, like doors opening and whatever. But yeah, I could play. I can just set the time of day to something nicer. Play. Yeah, so that's what I've been doing on my own in my spare time. Okay, and I have 10 more levels like that. So the whole thing is built out, and to really push it through, I can do that, and it's going to take a while, probably takes too long, but you know, you have different weather systems. I sped up the time of day, and I'm going to get a tornado and so forth, so the weather is going to worsen. you know, I have the whole thing built out, and there's not a single line of programming anywhere, there's not a single line of text anywhere. Okay, so now we get rain, and we'll get a tornado. It's high speed right now. And we get a tornado coming in. Wait, it's a little bit, I'm gonna slow it down soon. Now we're at normal speed. So I have that thing, and yeah. Again, not even that, that's not even animated, that's just a material effect. I just took the material editor, did some notes, and the whole thing works. Okay, that's Unreal, that's why I use Unreal. So yeah, I think I died. So I'm out of time, I will wrap up.